Did you guys just see that? I wouldn't blame you if you went back and just watched it again, because it's so awesome. Anyway, what's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Redemption with Jaden. I feel like I'm now, like, YouTube official, you know? Like, I've been going for a few months now, but finally have my own intro for my channel. So, like, that makes me an official YouTuber, right? Right? Hopefully. I don't know. What do you guys think? Super huge shout out to my good friend Catherine Lee. She put together this intro for me. She actually designed the logo for me as well, which has been my channel profile picture and my picture other places for a few weeks now, but the intro is finally set to go. We got it all fine-tuned and everything, and it's awesome. I really like it. I hope you guys like it too. I'm not going to talk about it too much because, you know, it's the intro. It's going to be in every video. It's going to be like the best 10 seconds of every video. Anyways, but yeah, huge thank you to Catherine Lee. She's actually, she does a lot of like video development, making graphic design, which is really sweet. You can check out her Vimeo down in the description below if you want to check out some of her work. Yeah, super cool. So let's get into what we're doing today. We got another deck check for you guys, but we're also, I guess the deck we're going over is a Type 1 multiplayer deck that was sent to me by Mike Lasky, a.k.a. 777 Godspeed, and he was like, hey, you want to check this deck out? I think he said that he took second with it in Type 1 multiplayer at the Idaho State Tournament. So congrats to him on that. But he still wanted to, you know, get my thoughts on it, and I was like, sweet, let's make it into a video. But I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on Type 1 multi on my channel because, for one, it's kind of hard to play Type 1 multi games on Lackey. It's not impossible, but you know, just getting that many people together at the same time, and the games be long, and yeah. And Type 1 multi is not my favorite category. Like Type 2 multi, sure, we can do that, but Type 1 multi, yeah, and take it or leave it. It's just so, I don't know, I don't want to say boring. Like it's still fun. At least it can be fun, but this the way that the games go, it's just like, okay, he's searching and drawing and doing all these, you know, getting their big setup, and then if you can't keep up, then, you know, you've pretty much lost hope. And so you have to build your deck in a very specific way, which is what we're going to be talking about today, and going over this deck in particular, which has a Profits offense. So we're going to see, you know, how can we Type 1 multi-ify, you know, Profits, the Profits offense, mostly, you know, OT Profits. So yeah, first thing I want to do though is I want to kind of go over some Type 1 multi etiquette. Since I'm not going to be talking about Type 1 multi much on my channel, I figured I would take this opportunity to kind of talk about it a little bit before getting into the deck specifically. So the first thing about Type 1 multiplayer, or really any multiplayer category, so, you know, Booster Draft as well, is also technically Type 1, which that's definitely fun. So good to talk about here. Make sure you spread out the Lost Souls. You know, obviously, if you're, you know, if one of your opponents is at 4 Lost Souls and the other is only at like 1 or 2, then, you know, you probably want to save your dominance or your blocks or whatever for the person with more Lost Souls. It seems kind of intuitive, but, you know, not everybody understands that right away. And, you know, even like, you know, 4 Lost Souls is pretty obvious, but, you know, when they're maybe just at like 3 Lost Souls or something, and the other opponent's at 1, then just kind of recognizing, like, okay, if I've only got 1 lost soul out, or a certain number of lost souls that my opponents can rescue, then I want to make sure that I kind of spread them out so that everybody's kind of gaining ground evenly and no one's just getting off to a super strong lead, because that can be kind of hard to come back from if you're falling behind and one person is just directing the whole game basically, unless that person's you, in which case you're doing a good job, you're playing multiplayer correctly. So there are some exceptions to this, though, I do have to admit. So let's say that there's only 1 lost soul on the table that's available. The guy on your left has 3 lost souls rescued, the guy on your right has 1 lost soul rescued, but it's your turn next, and the guy on your right is making a rescue for the 1 lost soul on the table. In that case, you might want to use your dominance or some other interaction, if you can, to stop the person from rescuing a lost soul, even if it's only their second and somebody else is at 3, because then you want to be able to have an opportunity to rescue that lost soul. So that's one exception. The other is if the player at 1 is Justin Alstead, in which case you just blow all your dominance on him right away. If you don't even let him get to 1, then he can't get to 5. So that's the strategy there. Second thing about the etiquette, be very careful, or be extra mindful about triggered abilities that are on the table. So cards like Golden Calf, that or not Golden Calf, Golden Cherubim, that one, it's actually in this deck here. If an opponent draws because of a special ability he controls, you may search your deck for a card. So if one of your opponents has Golden Cherubim active, then be very mindful about when you draw, because then you're giving them a huge advantage, and the other players at the table might get upset at you. So it's kind of being aware of those things, because there's no table talk in Redemption multiplayer, like there is in some other games. You can't you can't like tell someone, okay, be careful not to draw because he's got Golden Cherubim active, or at least you shouldn't. And so that is one thing that you have to make sure that you're being extra mindful about it, because if you make a mistake and it blows someone else's chance to win, then that happens. They shouldn't get too upset about it, but that's just know that it's there. But also you can also use your opponent's triggered abilities to your advantage. So say the person who is at 4 is getting to their turn and there's only 1 lost soul on the table, but that person has like Sheol or something, and so you place say you play your Second Coming to grab your Son of God back, to use that search ability so that they have an opportunity to underdeck a lost soul, and if there are 2 lost souls on the table, then you can play Son of God on the other one or something. So basically just using it to counter your opponent by helping your other opponents, basically, or triggering their abilities. Obviously it's not as reliable with things like Golden Cherubim, because you can't say like, okay, if you use a draw ability, I'll search for my Christian Martyr so I can use it on so and so on the next battle. That's table talk, and so you can't do something like that. But if you're recognizing that that's the play that they might make, then maybe you just go for it. Another thing that's kind of in general for like playing, I think card value is usually better than defense. If it's like your first turn, or like your opponent's first turn or something, and they're attacking you, and you have the Lying Prophet in your hand, and you also have Profane Daughters in your hand, you know, you can block with Profane Daughters and grab Unsuccessful and get the block. Or you can just block with the Lying Prophet and get some more profit from your block. And, you know, still, and you might have to give them Lost Soul. In fact, you probably will, especially in a deck like this without too many options for the Lying Prophet. But getting that card draw is more valuable, especially early on in the game. And, you know, letting someone get to 1 is okay, unless it's Justin, like I said earlier. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, that's card value is definitely, or is like card advantage, maybe is a better way to put it. It is very important in multiplayer. So yeah, that's kind of more, or that's the general stuff. Now we're going to get into the deck building and this deck in particular. General deck building, your Type 1 multi-deck is often going to be offense heavy. If you're you know, not making a rescue attempt every turn, then you're kind of you're not setting yourself up for success, I guess. You should always be making attacks, which means you always want to be drawing heroes. So you can see this deck has 13 heroes in the main deck and 1 in the reserve. You know, you might not need quite that many, but you can't really go wrong if you do have that many. You want to have lots of offense so that you're drawing into it, and the defense is fairly minimal because you know, are hopefully getting a lot of speed so you can draw into blocks when you need them, but overall you're more concerned about rescuing Lost Souls yourself than blocking. It's kind of just you know, mathematically speaking, is better, because I would rather get 1 Lost Soul than prevent one of my opponents from getting 1, because if I get 1, then I'm, you know, ahead of 3 opponents by 1 more Lost Soul, so that's kind of like a +3. But then if you're just stopping like one of your opponents from rescuing, then, you know, the other is more likely to get in, or, you know, the 2 others are more likely to get in because you're using your battle winners on 1 person, and it's just maybe the math doesn't check out exactly, but that's just how it goes. So offense heavy, get, you know, value from your defense, and you can still have kind of a few blocks here and there, but don't focus on that for sure. You also want to have a lot of soul generation. A really important aspect of multiplayer is being able to choose who you attack. So if there's only 1 person with Lost Souls available, then, you know, you obviously have to attack that person. But if you have more like soul gen cards, then you can, like, you know, if 1 person had 2 Lost Souls, and or the person to your left had 2 Lost Souls available, and then your, you know, 2 opponents just walked in for 2 freebies, having a soul generation card to, you know, play a Lost Soul from their deck or generate a Lost Soul token or something like that is going to be very helpful, because that means that you can just get a freebie from them as well, you know, hopefully. So yeah, those are kind of the key things to make sure that your Type 1 multi-deck has a lot of. And the last thing, this is pretty important, your Type 1 multi-deck should be only 50 cards. 51, maybe. I think that's, yeah, 51 can cut it, I think, in Type 1 2-player if you're, you know, going for a super competitive deck. You know, most of them are 50, 51. In Type 1 multiplayer, it's always got to be 50, in my opinion, at least. 50 and Hopper. So that's the first thing that we're going to look at with this deck, because Mike sent it to me and it had 55 cards in it. So we're going to be looking for some cards that we can cut and yeah, try to trim this down a little bit. I'm not going to get it exactly to like, okay, here's the optimized 50 card deck with all the changes I would make. I'm just going to kind of drag out some cards that I would cut without really counting exactly. I'll leave that up to Mike, as you know, I don't want to just build a deck for him. And for you guys, if you want to build this deck and try it out, I'm sure Mike would be cool with that, but he can correct me if I'm wrong. He gave it to me and allowed me to make a video for it, so I think he expected that it would be available for all of you to try out. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get into it. Let's start out with the Lost Souls, and then we're just going to kind of move our way across here, finishing up with the reserve. So Lost Souls, pretty standard set of Lost Souls here, except with the exception, I guess, of the Foreigner Lost Soul. Mike told me that he didn't have an extra Remnant Lost Soul to put in this deck. It was, his copies were in other decks, and so he ended up putting in the Foreigner instead. Not a terrible idea. I think getting to top deck some stuff from reserve, especially when you have a lot of good cards in there, is decent, or just getting being able to recur one of your enhancements is good, but it's not great. Top decking cards from your reserve means more cards in your deck, which, as we'd said before, 50 is the best. This basically puts you at 51 or 56 in this case. Yeah, and recurring stuff from your enhancements from your discard pile. Hopefully the game doesn't get to that point where you need to start recurring your battle winners and stuff. The game, there aren't usually that many rounds in a Type 1 multiplayer game, and so you don't really need to recur your stuff. I mean, if you have a Remnant that you can use for this deck, definitely put that in there, because you can, it's helpful to be able to take your opponent's characters when it comes out, or he can grab Elisha from the reserve. That's the hero that he has in here. If you don't have a Remnant, or are using it elsewhere, Distressed is also a pretty good option. It's the one that negates characters in other territories. There are a lot of territory class characters that can be annoying in Type 1 multiplayer when you're trying to draw and search and do all that fun stuff, like Jonah and the Babylonian merchants, and just things that are helping your opponents get some get set up and stuff too. Like negating a Joshua in a post-exilic deck is pretty good. So yeah, I think that's Distressed is definitely a good way to go, and I might actually consider cutting Lawless out of the deck for Distressed and a Remnant for Foreigner and Lawless, just because the odds seem pretty low that since Lawless is the only New Testament Lost Soul that you'll meet the you won't meet the unity for Covet, which needs only Old Testament Lost Souls. The odds seem pretty low that you will have Lawless out, since it's like 1 of 7 Lost Souls, but it's actually, I think, happens more often than you think. It can just be like, okay, Lawless is the first Lost Soul I give up if I'm ever attacked, but I don't know. I think the ability to generate a Lost Soul with Covet outweighs the possibility of generating a Lost Soul with Lawless. Plus, the person that you're generating a Lost Soul from would be getting an evil card from their deck probably as well. And you don't usually, your deck is going to be fairly offensive heavy, so there's not a whole lot of evil cards for you to get either. So it's probably not, probably okay to cut. Card advantage is good, especially on a Lost Soul. So that gives some value to Lawless. But I think if you're using Covet, that it's probably not worth it. You'd rather be able to generate a Lost Soul, and then there are other easier ways to generate a Lost Soul that don't also give your opponent more defense. Other Lost Souls, I mean, like, so Prosperity, Hunter, Exiles, those are all pretty obvious. They're just like card advantage kind of stuff, or Hunter to, get your Exiles out or get your Remnant out. Foreigner also is put in territory, and then if you put it in Distressed, getting that out is good. And then Wicked, getting that out is, I mean, it's another ongoing ability, so it's, pretty solid. I think in this deck it's probably worthwhile just because he's running both Suicidal Swine Stampede and Death of Unrighteous, which, Lost Souls are, there are a lot of abilities that protect Lost Souls and that kind of stuff. So getting these two to be regardless of protect abilities is pretty good. And then also, Scattered too, if they're running like a Throne deck with David, Jehoshaphat, Isaiah, that sort of thing, then getting your Scattered to be regardless of protection is pretty good too. So, pretty much for the same reasons that it's good in Type 1 2-player. Looking at the dominance, I think Guardian of Your Souls is definitely a card that should be in pretty much every Type 1 multiplayer deck. I can't really think of any exceptions off the top of my head, so it's good. It's really good when you have ways to search for it, just so you can get it out early. Just because, I mean, they're right now in Type 1 2-player falling away, or the women's falling away is pretty common, but in multiplayer there are 3 opponents, and so the odds of at least one of them having the women's falling away is higher. And if you're doing well, you're getting out to the lead, then you're going to be the target. That's I think makes Guardian worth it, and also it counters cards like Death of Unrighteous and Suicidal Swine Stampede that can give this deck trouble because there aren't as many options for protecting Lost Souls. So, doing this, just being able to discard an evil enhancement from hand instead of, and keep one of the Lost Souls out is pretty good. Another card that Mike put in because his alternatives were elsewhere in his decks was New Jerusalem, the newer one that copies. This is definitely a good option if you don't have the Second Coming. But like, it's even, I think in multiplayer, like, there's some potential for it, more so than in 2-player. I think it's better, just because you have 3 other people who are presumably also playing Son of God in their deck, and so you can use your New Jerusalem to copy their Son of God. So yeah, that seems like a pretty good substitute if you don't have the Second Coming, but Second Coming is still better for the most part, just because being able to get them separately is good, and you can trigger your opponent's Sheol out of turn, like I said. My example. Obviously, Son of God, 3 woes, yeah, that's a pretty much a staple as well. Mike's using the new Falling Away from Cloud of Witnesses, which it kind of makes sense if you have a hero like Elijah in your deck, and also assuming that most other people are going to be playing the new, or are going to be playing Guardian of Your Souls. It kind of does give you some value here. The problem that I see with it, I guess, is that one, there's a lot of territory protection nowadays with like Noah's Ark, and Mike's even got Whirlwind Everlasting Grounds in here that does the same thing. So definitely does require some timing, and it doesn't always not going to be, or it's not going to be quite as consistent as a block, because of just the sheer amount of banding that's in most decks these days. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely still a toss-up. I could see substituting it out for the women's Falling Away, but in this deck, I think the Cloud of Witnesses one also fits just as well because of the choose the blocker and the ability to take out someone's hero if they're not protected, you know, when you choose them to block. Then last dominant he's got in here is Mayhem. Yeah, I'm not entirely sold on Mayhem in this deck, especially. Like, there are a lot of characters, so you can put a lot of stuff down, and kind of get your hand pretty low, and then it also does give you that foreign wives block potential. But I think I would rather have either Chronicles of the Kings, because just that negate during battle is so good, just like with Three Woes, and it also answers like Golden Calf, Covenant with Death, other like counter cards that people might be playing, or Shipwreck. I think, you know, taking out someone's Noah's Ark or something to you know, make their or allow you to be able to get at their heroes seems pretty good, or taking out like their storehouse so that Lying Prophet and Damsel can be more effective, and some of the other cards that I'm planning to suggest later on to do some more hand looking it would be good, because I think, you know, like I said, being able to choose who you get to attack and being able to generate lost souls, which sometimes involves searching through their deck, you know, requires their deck and hand not to be protected, so you can get the information and get the lost souls out. So I think Shipwreck is maybe the way I would go. Christian Martyr, there's always a case for that as well, but like I said, with the banding, I think if you're running Cow Falling Away, then yeah, maybe that can just be Christian Martyr if you needed to, basically. Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention with the Lost Souls is that Hopper Lost Soul should be in here. I guess I mentioned that before, but when I was talking about just general deck building, but 50 cards with Hopper is probably ideal. Nice thing about Hopper in multiplayer is that you can give it to an opponent, or like if you get it in your opening hand, you can give it to an opponent with you know, fewer lost souls, so that, you know, you still increase your chances of getting to choose who goes first, because going first is gives you a pretty significant advantage in multiplayer most of the time. So I mean, that's another reason to run your deck at 50 cards, because it increases the number of lost souls that you're likely to draw. Also makes the Awake Lost Soul a pretty decent one for multiplayer, because of the soul gen aspect as well. So that might actually be better than the Lawless, or actually maybe better than the Covet, and then you can play Awake and Lawless. Yeah, just a thought there. But yeah, Hopper for sure is good. And like, say, you know, the person on your left has drew 2 lost souls, and the person on your right drew 2 lost souls. Well, then you want to give the Hopper to the person on your right so that they choose to go first, and then you can go second. You know, basically just getting it so that you get to have the first shot at attacking, or you know, as close to the first as you can get, and also you know, limiting the amount of counters that will be activated or played during your opponent's turn before it gets to your turn. Because if you you know, don't draw, or if you are like going last and your opponents have, like, you know, Jonah, Golden Cherubim, Babylonian Merchants, and everything out, by the time it comes to your turn, you're hardly going to be able to do anything when your opponents have already kind of gotten to different levels of setting up. So definitely want to try to go first, which means Hopper is good, Awake is good, Covet, I guess, kind of does the same thing as Hopper, but it also gives you a lost soul, so yeah, that kind of works out there. And then, yeah, get down to 50 cards. Alright, let's go on to the next section here. I think, I mean, Treacherous Land, obviously a super good card in multiplayer, I think, because there are, you you know, lots of good multi-brigade cards that people are playing. Unfortunately, well, actually, it does say an opponent, so I think it actually does trigger when, like, someone attacks with a multi-brigade hero against someone else. So, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Either way, it's a super good card, especially because dominants are going to be all over the place. They're going to be, you know, probably 28 dominants at a table of 4. So that's basically half your deck if you can get Treacherous Land out early. So, well, okay, I guess only 21 because it doesn't count your own. But anyways, yeah, being able to draw one is, or every time a dominant or a multi-brigade card is played in battle, like, yes, we take those. Damascus is kind of similar, although not quite as good. It's just if an opponent searches a deck, which honestly doesn't happen quite as much as you might think. Like, searching discard pile and reserve are pretty common, but searching deck is, it really happens like early on in the game and then not quite as much later on. So if you get it out first turn, this is super good. But yeah, I don't know. But it is also an opponent, so it doesn't require, like, say one of your opponents attacks another one with I don't know, a.k.a. to play a fortress from their deck, or no, I guess a.k.a. only does reserve. Anyway, they attack them with someone to search their deck, and then, you know, Damascus would still trigger in that case because it says an opponent, not if opponent, which is only the person that you're in battle with, if there's a battle going on. So, yeah, I think it's good. Just don't be tempted to play it as a site early on if you don't have any evil characters or something. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's okay to take Damsel from your deck or something. Well, take Deceiver. Don't take Damsel because you don't want them to see what you actually have. Take the Deceiver. Here, I can show you what it is. But, I don't know. Unless you have a way to bounce it, or I suppose, you know, you can shuffle it with Firefoxes. You really, like, want to play it as a fortress. I remember making this mistake in at least one game where I played Damascus as a site early on to get an evil character, and it just was terrible. I should have played it as a fortress, and I would have gotten probably at least like 9 cards from it by the end of the game. Storehouse, yeah, is pretty good. Get your hand protected, get your Old Testament enhancements from your reserve. So I think that maybe what I would add in this section here, though, is Majestic Heavens. Definitely is great for soul generation. It does trigger Sheol, which is unfortunate, but there aren't a whole lot of soul generation cards that don't trigger Sheol, so kind of just got to be mindful of that. Yeah, Majestic Heavens. Yeah, like I said before, choosing who you get to attack is very important. Majestic Heavens allows you to create a soul token in any opponent's land of bondage, so after you've been able to look at their hands, or you kind of have a feel for who's got defense and who doesn't, then you want to obviously try to attack the person who doesn't. Moving on, I'm going to try to keep this going sort of quick. I feel like I'm taking a little too much time here. So Firefoxes, good jump block. Delivered, good for setup. Artifacts, I think this is a pretty solid artifact lineup. Endless Treasures is good for drawing and getting those curses out. Golden Cherubim, probably, like, I think this is a pretty good artifact for multiplayer. It's really good in, like, Type 2 multiplayer, especially if you can, because you've got room for Glory of the Lord and then a temple, or, you know, Solomon's Temple or the Tabernacle. Well, actually, no, it has to be Solomon's Temple because Golden Cherubim is not a Tabernacle artifact. But yeah, Glory of the Lord on Solomon's Temple with Golden Cherubim active is sweet because it cannot be negated and it's protected from opponents. And, you know, as long as they're not countering your searches or something, then you're just going to be getting everything you need, and it's awesome. In Type 1 multiplayer, it's still good. I think it's worth it. It's worth playing, especially when you can use cards like Delivered and Offering Your Son to get it out early on. Then you can search for things like Guardian should be your first go-to, but you know, then you can search for Son of God, New Jerusalem, or Second Coming. Search for the heroes you need. You don't always need to get Son of God and New Jerusalem right away, although in Type 1 multiplayer that's a pretty safe bet. But you know, make sure that you're getting your rescues solidified first, because well, unless you're like already at 3 or something, but you want to you can draw into the Son of God and New Jerusalem, play those on your opponent's turn. You can only rescue on your turn, so make sure you get those solidified so you're not wasting opportunities to rescue a lost soul. Hidden treasures, obviously a Prophet's staple. And being able to play an enhancement before or pre-block is pretty sweet. Or if you're using Elijah, being able to play you know, as soon as they block, play first is also pretty sweet. That was kind of the strategy of the teams deck that Justin and I used at Nationals 2019. So yeah, it's pretty fun. We've got Come to the Philistia and Captured Ark here, and I don't think either of them stay in the deck. Come to the Philistia, never going to be using it in battle. I've only got one red hero, and he's only half red, and it's never gonna be used on the enhancement side in this deck. And the artifact side, we've only got one animal in reserve, so I think that we can kind of optimize it and switch some things around with the serpent, like putting it in the deck, and we can take Come to the Philistia out. The problem with it, I guess, being is that for one, you're giving your other or your opponents an opportunity to do it, and two, like, I mean, it's a good draw too, but I think I would rather have like Golden Cherubim active for an entire round than just getting an artifact that is like you may draw two, because I mean, taking an evil character is not like super necessary. So an artifact that's like you may draw two may be used once, which is basically what this is in this deck. Probably not worth it. Captured Ark, I think I would put in reserve, and then I think I would put Flying Scroll in the deck instead, simply because Flying Scroll can be used in battle as well as an enhancement, which is kind of an underrated enhancement or part of the card, I guess, in my opinion. Obviously it was pretty essential to my play opponent's dominance combo that from a few weeks back, but it's still really good if you can reserve someone's Son of God or something from their hand, or Angel of the Lord or something. That's really cool. It makes it, or like most people don't have easy ways to get those out of their reserve unless they're kind of like built around it, like, or they have like the one with child or something like that. So yeah, I would put Flying Scroll in reserve or in deck, because Endless Treasures can also go to deck, and then you can just use Endless Treasures to get Captured Ark when you need to. You can also use Storehouse if you need it, but you're not always going to need Captured Ark, and Flying Scroll is going to be a little more useful, I think. But I think Captured Ark is an important card for multiplayer, just for having answers to artifacts and stuff. So I think it stays in the deck, but in reserve. Come to the Philistia, nah, probably not worth it. Let's go to the heroes. Daniel, I'm not super sold on. Looking at your opponent's hand is cool. There's no Daniel heroes for him to ban to, though. He is a major prophet, so he can be exchanged to with the Watchman, and his negate ability is actually like super strong. Negating evil characters in Type 1 multiplayer is pretty good because you're negating like Firefoxes and Uza and all of those common chump blocks. Profane Daughters is another one. And then negating New Testament enhancements, I imagine, will be better once Gospel of Christ comes out. But for now, it's kind of negates like Suicidal Swine Stampede. I guess it negates Divination if that's overplayed in battle, but there aren't a whole lot of New Testament enhancements that you're going to be seeing on defense. So this is kind of a maybe cut, so maybe I'll put it down here. John the Revelator, I don't ever see a situation where I would want to attack with him versus someone else, so I think that he could be cut. And same with Prophets of Gibeath. If you were using a Philistine defense, I could see an argument for it, but negatable bans can be kind of dangerous, I guess. So yeah, I would probably take them out. They don't really give you a benefit other than looking at the top 3 cards, which is kind of like don't really need to do that. Especially with all like the searching and drawing that goes on, like they're just not going to stick around very long. You want to know like what's in their hand and some of the options they have in like reserve or something, if you can find that out, or kind of through intuition figure that out. But yeah, I don't think Prophets of Gibeath is worth it. He also doesn't have any cards involving music in the reserve, which I wouldn't expect a Prophet's offense to. So yeah, I think that these would come out, and what I would do instead is put in Malachi. He's pretty good. He's the one that lets you top deck a star card from your discard pile, or take it if you have like another Minor Prophet out or something like that. And then Joshua the Restorer, I think actually could be pretty decent in this deck, and I'll tell you why once we get to the enhancements. That'll make more sense. Jeremiah, he was using the TXP Jeremiah, which actually I didn't realize until I read the ability is actually not that bad in Type 1 multiplayer, because negating all protectabilities on fortresses and evil characters basically does the same thing as Daniel. He's negating Uza, Firefoxes, the guys that protect lost souls. Can also negate, like Storehouse or something temporarily. You're also negating your own Storehouse, so be careful. But I still think that Jeremiah Hopebringer is probably better. Let's just bring him up here real quick. He lets you look at a hand and then toss the next evil enhancement played this battle. That's actually super good in Type 1 multiplayer, in my opinion. I don't even know if that's opinion. It's probably just fact. Just because, like, I mean, look at, there are only 5 evil enhancements in this deck, and 2 of them are territory class, like not really worthwhile in battle. Although tossing Divination, that's not too bad. But being able to make your opponent like toss their Scattered or DOU or Swine Stampede, like that's super good. And especially if you're getting hand information, which we're gonna add a little bit more of that into the deck. Then you just attack your opponent with 1 enhancement in their hand, and you're golden. Because it's going to be tossed right away unless they can somehow negate his ability. So yeah, it kind of leaves you a little more open to chump blocks, but I think Jeremiah Hopebringer is better than the old Jeremiah, especially if you do keep Daniel in, which probably can if you have room. Zechariah, he's obviously pretty good. Negates characters and enhancements as long as you've got a Temple Priest and a Minor Prophet. Let's see, Jeremiah is a Temple Priest. It's another reason to add Joshua, I think, because being able to negate enhancements is pretty pretty important with Zechariah since he's beefy and you want the fight by the numbers kind of stuff. Mighty Warrior, he's kind of on the list of probably cut. He's good. He's got, I mean, basically the same sort of effect as Jeremiah, where you can toss the next evil enhancement, play this battle, and you can also, get some value maybe if you can take a good Isaiah card or OT red card, which is just going to be an Isaiah card. Yeah, well, you could take Damascus. That is technically an OT red card. Or, no, we won't even talk about coming with Philistia. There are a few Isaiah cards, Suffering Servant, let's see, that one's Micah, Isaiah's Call, and then Isaiah, but, yeah, I still don't think it's worth it. It's better to ban if he has to be alone in order to be effective, and that leaves you vulnerable to, Christian Martyr falling away for, whoever's still playing those in Type 1 multiplayer, and, there will be people for sure. Just because they're still good dominance, they're just not quite as effective in the current meta. So play to the meta. I don't know that Mighty Warrior's necessarily worth it, but maybe. Elijah is very good. Choosing the blocker is very, very nice. Especially, works well with falling away. It works well with looking at your opponent's hand and seeing what they have, seeing, which character you want to block. So, yeah, he also is one way to get Elisha out of reserve. There's a few ways. If you put in Remnant, then that's one. Elijah is another. The Prophetess is another way. I could see an argument for using Chariot of Fire in this deck. I probably wouldn't do it personally, but since you are using OT Prophets, maybe it's worthwhile if you're running into problems with generating enough souls, but usually you want to be able to negate and take out your opponent's lost souls with your Son of God. So yeah, probably not worth it. Isaiah, he's good. He's not great. Like, I might not attack with him super often. But I mean, like, if using Light in the Darkness, like getting that out of reserve and making it cannot be negated on Isaiah is pretty good. Suffering Servant is the other card that cannot be negated on him. I'm also going to suggest some other star cards. So Isaiah, I think, stays in the deck. Micah, on the other hand, I don't think he makes the cut. I can see an argument for using the Prophecies of Christ Micah, the newer one, because he lets you draw some cards, and he's another minor prophet still. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't use this version, just because, like I mentioned earlier, recurring enhancements, like, hopefully you don't get to that point. And then the newer one that lets you draw up to 3 is decent, but and I think is better than this one, but it's still not really great. He doesn't band or anything usually. If you're, if you've got a drawing character, you want them to exchange or band or do something else. I mean, he can end a band, which is still pretty decent. So yeah, it's just kind of one of the, like, if you've got room for him kind of cards, you can put the Prophecies of Christ Isaiah in there. The Prophetess, I think, is good to help you get set up faster. It can get Joshua out of the deck, because he'll be somewhat important, like I'll mention. The Watchman is essential. Yes, I didn't even talk about Ezekiel. He's in there. Ezekiel the Vindicator, so the newer one, which I think is better than the older one in this case, just because more banding and and stuff is good, although no Babylonians in the deck to utilize his negate ability, but other people are probably playing Babylonians, so might get some there, and then Watchman can get that draw 2 with him, but that does lead us to Seraph, which is nice. Cannot be negated by an evil card and bans to all the prophets, but Cherubim is better. The Cherubim, let's see, lets you look at your opponent's hand, and this version is easier to read. You can top deck, or well, you have to top deck all the evil dominants. So for 1, you're slowing them down. 2, you're taking out their options for blocking you, which could backfire if like you're just like going in to take the Lost Soul out. You know that they're just gonna give it to you because they're saving their defense for someone else. Then maybe don't attack them with Cherubim because you want them to have their evil dominance for your opponents. But if you're ahead, you're in the lead, and you look at someone's hand, they have got a bunch of evil dominance that they can use on you when you attack, then you maybe want to attack them with Cherubim and get rid of those. He also has the option of banning to a priest, so you can ban to Joshua, who bans to a post-exilic hero, which Zechariah is one of those. So yeah, options, great. So yeah, Cherubim definitely should go in instead of Seraph. Seraph isn't bad, got big numbers, cannot be negated by an evil card, but Cherubim is better, cannot be negated when you use Ezekiel to ban to Cherubim. So yeah, do it that way. So yeah, we look kind of light on heroes here, so just so we keep track. He's a hero. Cherubim, Jeremiah, Hopebringer. These 2 are out. We've got Malachi in here and Joshua in here, so that brings us at 10. So yeah, I'd maybe just pick like maybe one of these 3, maybe 2, depending on where you're at. Oh yeah, Jonah. He definitely should go in here as well. Jonah is very good. Everybody's going to be trying to search and everything in Type 1 multiplayer, and even though, I mean, you kind of want them to search sometimes if you've got Damascus out or Envy or whatever, Jonah is better, I think. I mean, like, they're probably going to want to search either way, so you kind of get the double benefit, but yeah, I think having a counter and being able to slow your opponents down and kind of take out some of their key stuff is very good. Make them make more hard decisions. Enhancements. Offering Your Son. Very good. Take OT and artifact from deck. Also get the added benefit of taking an animal from reserve, which is another reason why the Serpent could be in here still, but yeah, probably not. Taking your Hidden Treasures, or Golden Cherubim, or Endless Treasures. Good options. I guess with the artifacts, I was thinking that Book of the Covenant could be a decent add. I don't think you really need it because there's only the 1 Covenant in reserve, which really only comes out with Exiles or Storehouse. If you're taking out a Storehouse, then you've got problems because that means you didn't have any. Well, okay, not necessarily. If you attacked on your first turn and your hero got discarded or something, or otherwise removed. But if you're taking I Am Creator with Storehouse, that means you're at least on your second turn because it triggers an upkeep, and yeah, that's not too bad. But it would be nice to be able to draw either Exiles or Book of the Covenant on your first turn to be able to get that I Am Creator trigger, and maybe go get the Prophetess or Zechariah or Elijah or something, or I guess Watchman would be a good option for drawing. Suffering Servant, I think, is okay. I would maybe not keep it, just because, I mean, like, look at the defensive battle winners in this deck. You aren't going to be using the Suffering Servant on any of these, except for maybe Scattered, if but. Or if your hero is alone, but and this is kind of the majority of defenses in Type 1 multiplayer decks. Like they're gonna look pretty similar. So I think Eyes to See comes out, and maybe well, we're probably gonna replace it with something else. So we'll put it down here. Isaiah's Call, yeah, that's pretty good. It makes your Isaiah also negate evil characters, which is just good to stop those jump blocks. Benaiah snatches a spear, same reason as Suffering Servant. And also Swords to Plowshares. Like both of these are just negates / interrupts, which is good but not great in Type 1 multiplayer, at least. So yeah, I would cut both of these. They aren't gonna be used too often. I mean, maybe it depends on like your play group or the kinds of decks that other people are bringing. If they're bringing more balanced decks, then maybe you need more of those. But usually you're gonna be okay without them. And the reason that I say that is because of the enhancements that I think should be added. So first of all, I think Emmaus Road should be added. Gets out some of your key heroes like Ezekiel, Zechariah, Isaiah, Malachi, yeah, and then also Offering Your Son also gets delivered. Lots of good stuff. Gets Light in the Darkness out of reserve if you like don't have Storehouse yet or something. So yeah, I think Emmaus Road. I suppose I shouldn't assume that everyone knows what these cards do. Yeah, the Emmaus Road, you can take a good star card from deck or reserve. It's a really nice card for speed setup and everything. So yeah, I would add that, and then also the First Sacrifice. That's another one of those kind of hand information cards, and it's actually really good with like Jeremiah. Because you can just take out one of their enhancements that they only have one option, and then it gets tossed. So yeah, or hitting like a Falling Away or something, or even a 3 Woes is really good. Basically, same kind of reason as Cherubim, but you actually get information before the battle this time. And speaking of that, the last enhancement, well, okay, second to last enhancement I'm going to recommend is Eyes to See, and this is where Joshua comes in. This is an idea I had a little while ago when I was actually building my post-exilic deck that I have been all about lately. Yeah, it's so much. It's ridiculous. I played a game the other night where I got to 12 cards left in my deck on turn 1. I did go second, but still, it was bonkers. So yeah, anyways, Eyes to See was in the initial version of that deck, or like it was one of the cards I had in there and then I ended up cutting. But in multiplayer, I think it would go back in. It would find a way in there, because if you have some OT profits, you can top deck Eyes to See, and then you get to draw it right away with Joshua. So in multiplayer, what that means is you can play it, you look at one opponent's hand, and then since it's going to be used by an OT profit, you top deck it, and then you get to draw it again. Then you can play it, look at another person's hand. Basically, every turn, you can just look at all 3 of your opponent's hands. Yeah, you see where I'm going with this. It's pretty nice, pretty nuts. And also, if you use the star ability, you look at your deck and decide not to shuffle it, you can count how many cards you need to get to Son of God, and then you can just play Eyes to See continually, underdecking the top 3 cards of your deck until Son of God is in your top 3. And then, you just have to be careful not to search or whatever before you draw, but it's valid. And doesn't have to be Son of God, obviously, but just for example. So yeah, that's where Joshua comes in. Joshua, I mean, he also works well with Majestic Heavens, with Malachi, and Jeremiah. Because if Jeremiah is harmed except by a capture ability, you can top deck him instead. So really it's, you know, using that sort of stuff but not slowing you down because you just get to draw them right away. So yeah, let's see, I don't think I talked about two bears. This is the one interrupt negate thing that I would keep because it interrupts but it also wins the battle. The problem with two bears though is that it definitely has potential to backfire if you've got, you know, your multiple different brigade evil characters out. Then you know, you're pretty much definitely gonna have to shuffle your own foreign wives if foreign wives is out. So I mean, you risk shuffling your own stuff back in, but you know, probably still good for making sure you win the battle. But like I said, the idea is to hopefully kind of figure out, or like plan your attacks by looking at hands and figuring out who the best option for attack is to not have to use two bears, or you know. That's what I'm kind of thinking for the deck anyway. The last enhancement to recommend is Reverence and Awe. It's a territory class multi-brigade enhancement. You can search for a good fortress or a multicolor site. So that'll let you either get Storehouse or Majestic Heavens or Treacherous Land. I feel like getting Treacherous Land out as early as possible is really good. Also, if you catch one of your opponents playing Son of God early on, and not without playing Second Coming, you can banish their discard pile. So banishing their Son of God can be pretty good and kind of set them back quite a bit. Or at least put them at a disadvantage. So yeah, let's go on to the defense. 7 evil characters and 1 in reserve is kind of a lot for type 1 multi, not gonna lie. So we're gonna put in, or we're gonna take out the Judean mediums, or at least I'm gonna suggest that it be taken out. The main reason is it doesn't really matter if you're making any of these characters cannot be negated. If you're running like King of Tyrus and Red Dragon, which both are pretty solid evil characters, even in Type 1 multiplayer, just because they're, you know, good blockers that don't require any resources, you know, can kind of stall your opponent. They're not great, but you know, they're decent. If you're using one or both of those, then I could see a reasoning for Judean mediums, but really, like making your Profane Daughters cannot be negated. You're kind of adding 4 more strength and toughness and giving up some initiative there. Damsel, it's already cannot be interrupted, so yeah, I mean, one thing I can see is making Messenger of Satan cannot be negated so that you can band to like another evil character, and then not have to worry about them negating the band or the draw. But I just don't think it's really worth it. So that leaves us with 6 evil characters, which really isn't that bad. The Divining Damsel, I guess, should definitely be cut for Damsel with the Spirit of Divination, which is the same unique character, but just the TXP version, because she does something a little bit different. There's no limit on her draw, but there's no, you know, searching for New Testament human hero. But we took out the only New Testament human hero from this deck, and even if John was still in the deck, I wouldn't use the Divining Damsel over Damsel with the Spirit of Divination, just because, you know, card advantage is very good. And so if you can get an extra 3 cards if they have a good multicolored good card in their hand, then you get to draw 9 instead of 6 with the Divining Damsel. So I know it's a fun card, or fun new card, but the old one is definitely better, at least until, you know, it gets rotated out or something. But if you do have to cut any more evil characters, like if you're still trying to get down to 50, the Lying Prophet is a possibility, because you can only play Scattered and I guess Flying Scroll, if you assuming that ends up in the deck. But you know, DOU and Swine Stampede both can't be played on Lying Prophet. Other suggestion is just cutting both Messenger and Swine Stampede. I know it sounds kind of drastic. Messenger can be really good, but he's not. Sorry, I'm kind of covering those up. They're not like top of the line. You won't have too many evil characters of your opponents to ban to, and you've got other options like Lying Prophet and Damsel for drawing. One of the reasons I guess that I would, another reason I would maybe cut Lying Prophet first is because you already have that same sort of option with Damsel. So like if their hand is protected by Storehouse or something, then Messenger would be better. So maybe we'll keep it like this for now. Evil enhancements, I think this is a pretty solid lineup. Divination is pretty good, getting your stuff out, and there are enough evil cards I think to justify it. Maybe not to justify Lawless, but I think Divination and kind of like being able to stack the deck and everything is pretty nice as well. But Envy I think could come out, and what I think would be better is to put in Balaam's Prophecy if you're using Joshua, just because that has potential to just like give you so many cards. It's bonkers. And Envy, it seems like a good card, and it seems like it should be really good in multiplayer, and maybe it is better than I give it credit for, but it's just, this doesn't really feel good to me. Like, I mean, lots of draw abilities aren't necessarily going to be on good cards. I mean, there are a lot of good draw abilities, like heroes and stuff, but I don't know. If you don't get it out early, then maybe it doesn't give you that much benefit. Although, I don't know, top decking cards from your reserve can give you some synergy with Joshua. I keep on mentioning his name, but he's not out here, so I don't know where to point. You can get some synergy there if you're, needing to get stuff out of reserve, but I don't know. Well, see where the deck is at, and kind of keep that as a possibility to cut. Otherwise, yeah, I think that this is pretty solid. Let's take a quick look at the reserve. I think Noah's Ark is, or I really like Noah's Ark, and I think it should be in most decks, as I've said before. But I think that Whirlwind Everlasting Grounds can be a decent replacement in this case. You can take it with Storehouse, but unfortunately that's the only way to get it out, which is kind of a drawback, I guess. At least I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's the only one I'm seeing right away. Well, I guess Envy. But yeah, I don't know. Like, you do have to play it first, which actually with Hidden Treasures in the deck, like that's probably the only reason that I would keep Whirlwind over Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark you can also get with Emmaus Road. You can get it out with Joshua if you need to. So got some options there. I don't know. I think I would probably keep Whirlwind in this build, but just don't sleep on Noah's Ark. Elisha I think is a decent hero. Is another hand look and another make your green enhancements cannot be negated. It's pretty sweet. I Am Creator, kind of already talked about that. Light in the Darkness, great battle winner, and it's reusable. Able Sacrifice, I like kind of seeing some of these old school cards, and they are somewhat useful, but this one I don't think it really makes the cut, and I don't think Visions really does either. There's just not going to be too many evil characters around, and I don't really see myself wanting to put in any of these evil characters against the blocking one. The one thing that's kind of cool that you can do is use visions, make your profane daughters fight their evil character or something, and then play Death of Unrighteous, or make Deceiver fight them and play, or Messenger and play Swine Stampede. So they do still get special initiative, but their enhancements are prevented during that battle, and then you're taking out their evil character, you're shuffling all your lost souls. It's a pretty neat combo. Maybe Visions can stay in the deck after all, or in the reserve, maybe, but problem is it doesn't work off Hidden Treasures, unless you play it with Elijah, I guess, so they already have to be blocking, and it's very limited options wise. Like, it has to be your evil character fighting a blocking evil character, so not always there. Magic Charms that one's pretty good for Profane Daughters. Unsuccessful, also good for Profane Daughters. I don't know that you necessarily need them both, and I kind of feel like Magic Charms is not quite as good because it's interruptible, and people have ways to negate neutral cards now, not in battle. And if you're activating it on your Profane Daughters in battle, then interrupt the battle is going to do the trick. So it's not really great. I could definitely see it being cut, although what is kind of nice about it is you can activate it on her in battle. You can discard it to capture one of their, two of their heroes in territory, or two, other heroes in territory, and then play Death of Unrighteous or something. That's still pretty good. So I would definitely cut this before unsuccessful. But you can keep it in if you've got room for it. Capture Dark, we talked about that, that's good. The Serpent, I think I would actually put in the deck, and then I would put one of your humans in reserve, and I think Foreign Wives is the way to go. Reason being is that Foreign Wives, not always going to be useful. Most of the time you're going to be able to get a Foreign Wives block, but it can come back to bite you if, like, they have Hannah or Throne of David or Babel, cards that are counting the number of your evil brigades, and you had to put your Foreign Wives down, or it's in your hand or something, like for Hannah. Then you're giving them a lot of advantage, and you kind of want to avoid that. You would be able to block the Foreign Wives and get a successful block most likely if they do draw that many cards, but I don't know. I think it's just better in reserve to get out with the Deceiver. Yeah, that's what I would do. Profane Daughters is another option if you would rather do that, but I think Profane Daughters is better to have in the deck for having divination targets, I guess, because it's only Damsel and Profane Daughters if you take out Judean Mediums. So actually Profane Daughters, keep her in the deck. So definitely Foreign Wives in reserve is the way to go on that, in my opinion. So let's see, I'm just kind of looking at my notes here to see if there was anything I missed. Other evil enhancements to consider, I guess. Treasures of War, don't really need it because you do have Captured Arc, but artifacts can be a pretty decent problem, or can hurt you a lot if you're there are certain artifacts, like maybe your opponent's Golden Cherubim or Golden Calf or something that's negating your Prophetess, your Jonah, and stopping your territory class enhancements. That can be a nuisance. So doubling up on your artifact counters can be good, because there's not really any room for Destruction Nation in decks these days. Type 1 decks anyway. East of Eden is another evil enhancement that actually might be worthwhile. It's one that I've put in most of my Type 2 multi-decks if I have, like, at least a few pale green evil characters. What it does is it's territory class and lets you play a Lost Soul from, I think it's playing an OT Lost Soul from a player's deck or an opponent's deck. So it's basically just another way to like select who you get to attack, basically, by generating a Lost Soul. So yeah, I think that that's probably worth it. Maybe not as worth it in Type 1 as in Type 2. But I think, with the Eyes to See combo or whatever, being able to look at everyone's hand, then kind of having that option of, playing a Lost Soul from someone else's deck if they don't have one out. I think that that's pretty good. Let's see, was there anything else? Oh yeah, so when I was thinking of if you wanted to add Book of the Covenant to the deck, I do, like, we did kind of make a little bit of space in reserve and could probably make more if we took out Magic Charms and maybe Visions. So Book of the Covenant could go in the deck to get another option for getting I Am Creator on turn 1. And then I think You Will Remain is a very good Type 1 multiplayer Covenant. Especially if you don't have your banding, or your best rescue is just with a lone hero, then yeah, You Will Remain is pretty good because it kind of gives you a second chance if anyone plays Christian Martyr or Falling Away or something on your hero. Actually, now that I think about it, I feel like Tested by Fire might actually be better than Two Bears. Just so you know what I'm talking about. Tested by Fire. If used by Elijah, you interrupt the battle, and then you just discard all evil characters in battle. So it doesn't really have any potential to backfire. And Magicians, Priests, and Prophets are actually like all over the place in Type 1 multiplayer defenses. I mean, if you're playing a Babylonian defense, then you might not have much, except maybe like Astrologers or something. But like Damsel is all over the place, Profane Daughters is all over the place, and these are really good options for Tested by Fire, especially if you're like, if you've got your Storehouse out, then you can use your Elijah to choose your opponent's Damsel. You'll get initiative, and your hand will be protected, and then you just get to play Tested by Fire. Cannot be negated Battle Winner, and it's great. Much better than Two Bears, which can be negated. Then, you can also get it cannot be negated on Elisha, too. So, yep, that's, I think that's going to do it for this week's deck check. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and yeah, play some Type 1 multiplayer once in a while. Just gotta, try it out sometimes to make sure that it's still there, still a thing. Who knows how much longer it'll actually be an official tournament category. I don't know. It might not stick around. But yeah, I don't know. Can be fun once in a while, and I think that Prophets definitely have a shot, and I'm kind of curious to see if this the Eyes to See and Joshua combo is worth using. So alrighty guys, that's gonna wrap it up for today. Thanks for watching. Bye.